Right, well, sir, welcome. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I know you have a super busy schedule and it's been forever trying to get your calendar precisely because you're always busy and you're always on the run. So thank you for spending some time and giving us an opportunity to talk to you. So the first thing, if you could do me a favor and say hello to the San Fernando Valley.
Sure. Hello, San Fernando Valley. Stuart Waldman, President of Vica. Super excited to be talking to you. I see you everywhere. You are at every grand opening and red carpet. So thank you for taking the time to come and humble me by coming to talk to me.
No, it's actually a pleasure for me, and that's one of the things that I want the community to know. Some other people, such as yourself, that you guys are not in the business of being celebrities, but people should know who you are, because you are a very important force behind the business community. And anybody who actually is in the San Fernando Valley and is serious business should know who you are. They should know a thing or two about yourself.
Well,
but for
you.
those who don't know enough, the first question is actually, how did you start your career?
I started in politics in 1991 on the Bill Clinton campaign, Clinton for president. Got involved with that and decided to work in politics and worked on a whole bunch of campaigns. And Bob Hertzberg, who's former state senator, former speaker, I met him, worked on his campaign, and then worked in his office for 6 years. Eventually became his chief of staff, and then became chief of staff for another assembly member who represented the Valley. Did that for 5 years. And then I've been at Vica now for 15.
Well, is this it? You said it like within 45 seconds, but I'm pretty sure that's a lot of years and a lot of work and a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
It was. There was a lot, but the underlying issue for me was representing the Valley, making sure the Valley got its fair share. And when the Vica job opened up, I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. And it's been fun.
So what were some of the first challenges you faced when you began your career?
Well, so here at Vica, we had a recession in 2008, and I've spent 11 years in the legislature, 7 as a chief of staff, and I came here to an association I'd visited. I'd been active with Vica, going to Vica events and knew the people, but I'd never run an organization. And as businesses were laying people off, I was still trying to figure out how things worked, and it was interesting for me because we continued to grow, and I thought I was doing something wrong, or that maybe I was reading the numbers wrong. And what it turns out, during recessions, during economic downturns, a lot of companies downsize their government affairs departments, and so we had people getting rid of employees but investing more with us to have us help them on their advocacy. And so we ended up thriving and growing substantially, and then when they did end up hiring people back, they still kept us around. And so that was a testament to what Vica does, and that was a big challenge though.
No, but I was actually talking about you as an individual. When you started your career, when you were just a young guy getting started, what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome?
If we go way back, I'm a high school dropout. Went to the Army out of high school. Ended up spending time in Kansas and West Germany in the Army. So back when there was a West Germany, got to be on the Berlin Wall, back in the 80s, and having to work full time while going to college, while also trying to figure out a career, what I wanted to do. There was one time I had 3 jobs for a semester, because that's what I had to do to get through college, and just finding my way. And I think that's what we all do in our 20s, trying to figure out what we want to do. And I got the bug on politics, and working for an elected official is great. You get to be part of something. I got to help fund the Orange Line and create the Orange Line. And, we created the state's first witness protection program back in the 90s, and getting yelled at by neighbors. It's there's nothing that until you get yelled at the first time. That's when you really realize whether it's something you want to do. And I think in politics, we had it easy back then. In hindsight, now they're showing up at people's houses and trying to drown you out. But that was a big challenge, and just trying to succeed and learn the lay of the land. The Valley was a much different place when I started, and I had a lot of friends who were trying to get into politics, trying to get elected. The Valley was a lot more homogenous at the time, and Latinos were trying to grow, and Alex Padilla was able to get elected to the city council, and Richard Alarcon to the city council, Tony Cardenas to the assembly. Up until that point, it was a much different political atmosphere in LA, and we did have a lot more Republicans in the Valley too. Now, LA, I think all the Republicans have left, it seems.
Yes, I believe so. Actually, the last one, I think it was Mitch Englander was the last one.
Mitch Englander, yeah. It's the political tenor has changed. There were a lot of seats. I was really active with the Democratic Party, and we'd go out to Glendale and register people in Burbank, and there'd always be fights. And people forget when Adam Schiff won. He beat a guy, I can't remember his first name, but Rogan, and Jim Rogan, I think, and he, that was a challenge, and he barely won that seat. Now he's held it forever, and now he's going to run for U.S. Senate, but that was a challenge, and he had run for a couple other elections and lost. So before that.
All right. Well, the next one is the opposite. Who were some of the people that helped you, to become who you are now?
I mean, it really starts with Bob Hertzberg. I was really fortunate to meet him when I was young. I'd created the San Fernando Valley Young Democrats. It was myself and Tony Cardenas and Alex Padilla and a few others. And, Bob came around, and he was going to run for office and wanted to, bring us on board. And so I started helping out and got to work with him. And so ended up working for him for a total of 7 years, 6 in the assembly and on his campaign. And he was a mentor and a friend, and really helped guide me and put me in a position to where I am now. Another gentleman, Greg Libby, who former chair of Vica, longtime friend. I ran for office in 2008. And for assembly, and ended up losing, but Greg was a big supporter of mine, and he was chair of Vica at the time that the position came available. And interestingly enough, a lot of folks thought that a Democrat in a business association might not be the right fit, and he made them interview me, and apparently I did well, and so got the job. So Greg played a pretty big role as well.
But you know what's funny? Actually, we were in the parking lot with my assistant, and we were in the car. And the first thing I said, I think Stuart would be someone that if he ever decides to run for office, I'll support him 100%. He's like, I believe he's the right person for the job, and I can't wait to see him actually, being one in a sitting office where I feel confident and secure enough that you do a great job, but also that you're approachable enough where people can actually sit down and say, hey, listen, these are some of the issues that we're having, right. And is there anything that you can do where people would not be afraid to talk to their elected officials. So I believe you would be the perfect candidate. If I would have known you back then,
right?
I would have totally endorsed you.
I needed you there.
Yes, sir. So next time you decide to run for office, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to back you up in anything that you decide to do in that political arena.
Well, there will be no next time. I ran once.
Stop.
It was pre-kids. It's hard, and I feel bad for a lot of elected officials to have a work-life balance. There's this expectation that you're always available, and everyone's got an event, and I remember I got into an argument with somebody online who was criticizing Nithya Raman, Councilmember Raman, who I don't agree with on much policy-wise, but she's got 2 kids, and she makes a rule that she's at 7 o'clock she goes home so she could put her kids to bed, and you don't get that time back. And for me, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I want to be part of their lives, and I get to do that. And being an elected official, you don't. And I'd argue that I do have the ability to influence legislation and what happens in the valley, and without being elected. And plus, nobody wants to have to raise money. That's a horrible thing.
You know what? I fully understand you, because actually pretty much done the same thing. I was in the neighborhood council for 10 years, and what I realized at the end is that if you really want to make a change, you really got to become friendly with the business community.
Yeah.
And that's how we end up establishing the chamber, because we felt like, this is one way that we can actually influence and have a say at the table, and we don't have to always be in the political arena. So
right.
I fully understand what you're saying, and I do have a lot of respect. I'm one of the people who, after 5 p.m., my phone goes off. You better be my mother, you better be this guy for me to actually, pick up the phone after 5. Otherwise, 9 to 5 is business hours. Any other than that, yes, I gotta have a personal life as well. So I fully understand what you're saying.
I unfortunately answer the phone all the time, but
you gotta work.
But I show up. Yeah. It was funny. I was in Qatar for the World Cup, and somebody called me, and they're like, what do you, hey, we need your help on this issue. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I'm like, but listen, I'm about to walk in to see the U.S. play Iran. And they're like, what? You're at a bar? I'm like, no, I'm in Qatar. And they're like, wait, why'd you answer the phone? And I'm like, because you are important to me. And, I was able to help them, through text and other things. But, you're right. Gotta turn off. I'm not good at that.
All right, so what advice would you give to the youth that would like to get either in the political arena or the business, arena?
The 2 different things, right? Political arena, I came up through the Young Democrats, volunteering, helping people, working on campaigns. I think there's value there. Working for elected officials, but building your network is important in both business and in politics. You never know when a scheduler ends up becoming a chief of staff. You never know when a field rep ends up becoming deputy mayor. It happens, and building those relationships really changes things. Or I guess in case a field rep, Alex Padilla, is now a U.S. Senator, and Alex and I were on the East Valley YMCA board together. We used to hang out in the back of the room and talk all the time, and now here he is, U.S. Senator. So you never know. But networking is important just in life, I think, and I think people fail to understand that the relationships, follow you, and you never know when you move into another realm or another job when that makes a difference. Education, I think, is important, and the people you meet along the way, but the jobs that you can get through that. There are quite a few people who are pretty important in the political world, but were either worked for an elected official for a year or 2, or never worked for an elected official, and they play a large policy role. I think the other advice I would give is be careful with social media. You and I didn't have to deal with that growing up, but God knows the things that we probably did and said that if they were online forever, what impact that might have. I don't know what 18-year-old Stuart would have looked like on social media back then.
Well, actually, I'm not that afraid because I was well behaved.
Okay.
I should have done more, but no, I actually behaved. I was in high school. Actually, I was an artist cadet. So that's one of the things that I
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of people, that's how they knew me because I was the second highest ranking in my battalion in our school. And actually, I managed to get a couple of national medals through that. So
really?
When I came out of high school, I had 170 awards.
Okay.
And that's how some people began to know me ever since even the business back then. So, for example, one of the gentlemen that used to sell, he used to own the Boost Mobiles in Panorama City. But he was actually the first person ever to sell pagers and phones in Panorama City.
Oh, really?
He used to have a booth at the Panorama Mall selling pagers. He sold me my first pager for me. Like the first pager that I ever got, he sold me to me when I was in middle school. So some of them, they know me even from that time, and they respect me because of that, because we've been involved with the community ever since 16 and 17. And yes, but I also, of course, there was in the 20s. That's when I actually got completely lost and trying to figure my life out. You got to put your pieces together to decide what is it that you really want to do. So I believe the 20s is actually a little bit harder.
Yeah, I was in a glam rock band in high school. Used to play the Sunset Strip.
Wow.
And I ended up joining the Army because I realized I needed to go to college, and the Army would pay for it, or not all of it, but nowadays they pay for everything, which is incredible. So a lot of my friends were like, "I can't believe you joined the Army. You're cutting your hair. You're doing what?" And so it's a big change. So, but I can imagine you probably had a high and tight going and the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, just to close it up, tell us a little bit about Vica. What's the purpose and why do we exist? And what was the for the business community to know what Vica can do for them?
Well, so Vica was created in 1949. A bunch of businesses got together as the GIs were coming back from World War II. Most of them didn't want to go back to Kansas or Wisconsin or any of those places, so they were coming to California, and we had to put them somewhere. And so a group of businesses came together, including Metropolitan Water District and DWP and a bunch of other companies, wanted to make sure that housing was built right, that we had proper roads. We didn't have proper sewage at the time. Freeways. Vica fought to get the 101 into the valley, which didn't happen until 1956. We fought to create LA Valley College and fought to create Cal State Northridge, which was San Fernando Valley State at the time. Every issue that's impacted the valley, Vica's been part of. We used to be called the Industrial Association of the San Fernando Valley back in the day. Businesses would join, and Vica would make sure that the valley got its fair share, or tried. And we've continued to grow and went from largely volunteer association to a largely paid professional staff association now. We're coming up on our 75th anniversary. There are quite a few things that we can hang our hat on, and whether it's fighting to make sure that the valley gets trains and other transportation funding, or bringing the Olympics to the valley, which was a big battle, and people forget about it now that we've got it coming. But I had to fly to Rio to meet with members of the IOC to work with the bid. At the time we were looking at LA 24 as opposed to 28, but we wanted to make sure that would come to the valley, and the valley would be part of that. The San Fernando Valley is 2 million people. We are between Chicago and Houston in terms of population, and I think people kind of forget that. We're diverse, we're a majority minority community, and people forget that too. There's this old ideology that the valley is just a bunch of white suburban conservatives, and that's just not who we are anymore. Vica tries to ensure that anytime there's a new law that that impacts business, that it doesn't hurt business and hamper business. Unfortunately, with the elected officials we have now, we are constantly fighting, and it is a battle that there are days that I just want to quit. But we need to make the atmosphere in LA business friendly, or at least business friendlier.
For now.
Yeah, for now. And we have to build housing. We have to be smart about growth. We've got to make sure that people can get where they want to go, which is the transit part. Up until Measure M, Valley only had 2 miles of train. We still don't have everything built, but we're going to have a train going down Van Nuys Boulevard in a community that most people who live off of Van Nuys Boulevard are transit dependent, and we weren't providing for them. And I think that's something that Vica really fought to make sure that we would. We're going to upgrade the Orange Line, which should be train and eventually will be, but we'll upgrade it so it's a little faster. Right now it stops at every major street, but we'll do some flyovers so that doesn't happen. And the Swelda Transit Corridor, we're going to have a train or a monorail that's going to go take people from the Valley to UCLA and the airport, which is something we should have done before. Get people out of cars, make traffic better, and if we improve quality of life in the Valley and LA, we'll be able to attract more businesses, and that's something that Vica has worked for.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Senator.
Thank you.
Again, we look forward to see as you continue. Can we expect anything special thing you have in mind for the 75th anniversary?
No.
We haven't got to that yet.
We haven't got to that. We'll have a logo. We'll have a logo. I think, we're pretty lucky. A lot of our former chairs are still involved in Vica. Our chair from 1978,
wow,
82, 83, 85, 91. They're all still involved. They're not as mobile as they used to be, but they still come out. And it's interesting hearing stories, and it's interesting hearing stories about people got mad when they hired a woman to be executive director. People got mad when they had a chair. The Fernando Awards, when that kind of changed, and just the changing demographics of the Valley. And it's interesting to hear those folks. We're going to lose their voices pretty soon, and but I think our 75th, I don't know, I'm not sure what we'll end up doing.
Well, we look forward to see what surprises you guys pull under the sleeve, but we know that anything that you guys do is always something very special and very, very worth attending. So thank you so much.
We appreciate you being part of it.
It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I brag all the time, telling people that we belong to Vica is probably one of our greatest accomplishments as a chamber.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.